1, 2, 3.
Hey guys, I'm Kent and welcome back to my channel. So I've got three things that I want to install into the Stunt Grom today. One is an installation that I've done on all my other bikes, stiffer springs for the clutch, as well as new clutch lifter plate. This one's actually from DROWsports. They sent it to me. It's a prototype. I believe they're going to have it out soon, but I'm going to test to make sure that everything fits. For the springs, I'm using the SMR springs. These are the same brand that I have in my Track Monkey, although this time I'm doing 30% springs. Talking with the guys from Impact Tech, they said 30% springs is the right stiffness for doing clutch ups and other things on a stunt bike. And honestly, on my Track Monkey, where I've got the 60% springs, I think I'm going to swap them out for the 30% springs if they feel better, just because on the track, it's only about a minute to do a lap, and I think within that lap, I'm probably shifting almost 10 times in some cases. So in a 15-minute session, that means that I'm doing 150 shifts, and my fingers just get really tired of how heavy that clutch pull is. And I think I could probably do with a little bit of clutch slip if my hand wasn't so exhausted. So anyway, I'm going to put the 30% springs into the stunt bike, and again, may then do the same 30% springs in the track bike. But in addition to the clutch springs and lifter plate, I also ordered a modified pump from Straight Up Pumps. And while my wheelies are still rather pathetic and I'm only keeping the bike up for a second or two, the goal is to eventually have it up for quite a bit longer, where the point that the oil usually picks up then gets drained because all the oil's in the back of the bike. So by having this copper pipe here, it is picking it up from the very back of the bottom of the engine. So when the engine's up, it's still able to suck oil in and keep the engine lubricated. So these are back ordered, and they have been for quite a while. They offer a mail-in service, so you can send them your existing pump that they'll modify. I had an extra housing from when I did the installation on my Repsol themed Grom and put the high flow oil pump in. So I sent them just the outside housing, and I'm going to pull apart the rest of the pieces that assemble from the old pump. But this way I was able to not have any downtime on my bike, and was able to get one of these pretty quickly. So all three of these pieces installed in the same location. I'm going to pull off the clutch cover. This, other than having to rebuild the oil pump with the stock parts, should just be a matter of bolting it on the same way that I did for the high flow oil pump. And the springs and clutch lifter plate should also just be a matter of pulling the old one off and putting the new one on. But I thought I'd take you along for the process. So let me get the clutch cover off. Let me get the oil drained, get the clutch cover off, and get these new parts on the bike. This bike still only has about 70 miles on it, so the oil still looks really clean. Now all these bolts that go around the clutch cover are the same length. They all use an 8mm socket. When you're torquing them back down, they torque down to 9 foot-pounds, but bringing them off, I'm just going to zip them all out. So with all of the bolts removed and also the clutch cable disconnected, it just comes out of that little slot. Looks like I can just barely get it out without having to take off the Impact Tech rear sets. I think if you're running the stock rear sets, you may have to take off the nut so that you can pull it off and pivot it away a little bit. So I guess I'll do the clutch lifter plate first. I'm going to just zip out these 3 bolts. Uses a 10mm socket. Move my oil pan away because the springs are going to fall out. Bearing comes out. Here's a look at the new lifter plate. This one again, prototype from DROWsports compared to the stock lifter plate. So this is a cast material and this is milled. You need to put the stock bearing into the new lifter plate. Like that. Fidget spinner. Then it's just a matter of setting the springs on each one of these posts. And then taking the new lifter plate. This is a 6-hole lifter plate, so if you want to modify the basket so that you can use 6 bolts instead of 3, you can. I've honestly found on all of my bikes just using the 3 seems to hold just fine. I've never had one break. If I ever do, I may switch to the 6-bolt method, but for now I'm good just using the 3 stock bolt holes. Just putting a little bit of pressure so you can get the thread started. And then just make sure all the springs are seated correctly behind the lifter plate. There's like a little lip on the outside. You can, here on the stock one, you can see the lip I'm talking about. It just kind of hangs over there, that you want to have the spring on the inside of that part. And then these being M6 bolts going into aluminum, they torque down to 9 foot-pounds. All right, well I have the case off, I may as well see what the filter looks like after 70 miles. A couple of specks of metal. Yeah, you can see them a little more clearly on this side. Actually a pretty good grouping of little pieces of metal and gunk there, so I'll clean that out before putting back together. So let me zip off the pump. So to take the oil assembly apart, there's an M6 bolt that has an 8mm socket that you remove, and then the plate comes off with the gear. There's a little dowel pin inside that holds the rod inside here. Remove that. The gear comes out, and these 2 gears pop out. So now I'm going to get my replacement one. And since I've got this extra housing, if anybody needs one to do exactly what I'm doing here, hit me up, because I won't be needing this. And then this inner gear has to have the little slot facing out, because it'll go inside that gear to capture the dowel. Try to time it so it's easier. So I'm going to replace the M6 screw here. I also have a better understanding now of where the pickup was. So the pickup on the stock setup is right here. And you can see here is blocked off on the new one from straight up pumps. But that's because we've got this copper tube that then goes straight in to pull the oil from the tube into this channel up here instead of coming through this hole. Okay, so I have the assembly all together now. I've got the dowel rods in. I torqued the bolt here down to 9 foot-pounds. And the installation is going to be a matter of routing the copper cable through this hole down here to get it all the way to the back of the engine. So just a matter of pushing that through. The white gear, you need to time it a little bit to align it. And that's it. These 3 bolts also torque down to 9 foot-pounds. And there are 2 more dowels with these little rubber grommets that go here. And that's it. I'll get the clutch cover back on, and I think we're finished. Using a star pattern, torque all of these bolts down to 9 foot-pounds. All right, so the clutch lever feels pretty good. It feels heavy, but not as heavy as the 60% springs. I will do a follow-up video once I ride this bike around a little more because, again, I think I'm going to put the same 30% springs in my track bike just so that my hand isn't so exhausted. Similarly, on this bike, doing the clutch ups, you're doing clutch ups over and over again. If you have too heavy of a spring, your hand's going to get tired. 30% should be the right amount of bite to help get the bike up a little more quickly. Something also I wanted to mention, because I had posted on, it was either Reddit or some other forum, about when you do the higher weight springs, whether or not you need to make an adjustment to the clutch. And in the comments, I made a statement that there shouldn't be any adjustment needed for the clutch, but one of the commenters came back and noticed that in my video, I had previously made a pretty significant adjustment in the tightening barrel here that I didn't realize. And now in doing this, I also realized that I need to make a little bit of an adjustment. So I'll go back and edit my comments that I made on the forum, but also wanted to clarify that you probably will, because in the last couple of bikes, apparently that I've done, I did need to make a change to the length of the clutch. Pulling it doesn't fully disengage the clutch. So I'm going to loosen this nut so that I can move it up a little bit and tighten it back down. You do want to have a little bit of dead play in your clutch lever. You don't want it to be tight from the onset, but you do need to be able to engage it fully. So I'm going to back off, again, this nut, make some adjustments here, and ride it around a bit. And I'll do a complete video review both of the clutch springs. There's probably not much to review about the oil pump. I'm just assuming that it's working. And hopefully soon here you'll see me doing some wheelies. So anyway, thank you everybody very much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and keep on building.